So when I had a first version working, I went to the Dutch Game Garden network lunch here in Utrecht, where I introduced myself and invited people to come play my game and tell me all the things I was doing wrong. I didn't tell them what the game was about beforehand, and it was really great to see all these different gamers play this little game I'd been working on. It immediately became apparent that the climbing was way too hard for most people, something I had been testing myself so many times I lost all sense of difficulty while working on it. And about half of all players said they would have liked some indication of where the game wanted them to go. So I added this little map later. Also, I realized the ending screen, with all the numbers and the big twist that this was actually an MMO, seemed to mostly just confuse people at first. And one player suggested adding the bars to make it more visual, which was obviously a really good idea. Playtesting is great. It puts everything about your game, good or bad, into a very clear perspective. The next day I had the chance to playtest my game with a group of teenagers who were not gamers and were not the age group I was trying to make the game for.
And what was interesting here was that they really wanted to keep playing after they got to the ending. I had to explain the gist to them still, but when they got it, one boy really wanted to try again and get to the top without flying. And there was this one jump he just couldn't seem to make, which made him fall almost all the way back down again each time. But he wouldn't give up, wanting to see what the conclusion card would say if he hadn't flown the whole way. He must have tried that jump at least 20 times. But as he kept going, he started to realize that he was getting better and better at the part up to this jump, alternating between frustration and enjoying his growth of agility. And then, when he finally made it without flying, and the ending card congratulated him, but also told him that the average emission output of all players was still too high, so the world would still explode, he got very pissed off. And when I told him that that was what I was going for, that your personal effort, amazing as it might have been, might not make the difference in this whole here climate change emergency, he could very easily connect that to his anger at that moment and really see what I was trying to say. Another nice thing that happened was a 12-year-old girl who was playing for a second time and kept saying, well, I really like flying, so I'm just gonna keep flying. And she thought it was very funny when at the end she had gone through 860% more emissions than a straight flight to the top, which she proudly showed to her friends. And then when I told them that while this being very impressive, it also meant that about 30 real actual people would have to make a jetless climb to balance out her play session and save the world again, they all looked at me in shock, and the girl started apologizing to me and the others. And when I told them it's okay, it's just a game, and I was happy with her experiment because it was a good example of what I wanted to address with the game, because some companies emit so much CO2 that even hundreds of people not flying or eating meat won't balance that out. They all looked at me with big, sad, empty eyes, seemingly not knowing how that would be something we could solve somehow. Now, of course, it was and is not my intention to break the children's spirits. It's not, but seeing those pennies drop so clearly with them was an even greater outcome of my game than I could have dreamt of. Which was great, because it made me feel like I was on the right track. And the teenagers, as well as the lunching game designers, helped me a lot to see what still needed to be done, what should be made clearer in the game and what parts were still too hard for people. But one of the biggest changes I made was because of seeing those teenagers wanting to try over and over again. In my original concept, the idea was that after you finish the game, you wouldn't get a chance to start over. You'd just get your ending screen again telling you, nope, you had your chance and this is what you did with it. In my mind, connecting it to the subject at hand. But I was now realizing that an option for multiple playthroughs might not be such a bad thing after all. By rejecting people's urge to do better, I probably wasn't really inviting them to change much, which was reflecting my personal opinion that we're all doomed.
But seeing the kids try over and over again, I saw them fighting the good fight, and a little hope in that. Also them realizing that what was once frustrating slowly became easier because they were getting better at it by not giving up, and feeling proud and satisfied because of that. That's how I would like to see more people tackle climate change.